He said, Mark, if you're going to do this, build a 1 or build a 10. You do not need a 4, 5, or a 6. If you're rolling, that's fine. I don't know. Are you rolling? You know, it's such a cliche. The days are long, the years are short. I mean, I'm the caretaker, I guess you could say, at this point. But it's not about me. It's about Mike Strantz. That's what it's about. And Mike makes us all look good and always has. And this is what we have, and we're proud of it. A lot of people love it. It's their favorite course in the world. And there's so many golf courses that everyone likes, but nobody loves. And you've got to find the love. You've got to find the true believers. From a career standpoint, Mike was put on this earth to build golf holes and build golf courses. And he tried to quit it, and he just couldn't. It just, nature, the cosmos, karma, whatever, it just drew him. That was his destiny.
I don't have a photographic golf memory like some do, but I could tell you every nook and cranny that exists at Tobacco Road because it's just such a vivid canvas that Strantz painted on. It's unbelievable. It's a one of one. There's nothing like Tobacco Road.
Unlike anything I'd ever seen, not just in golf, but like just a landscape like that. The contrast between the manicured fairways, but then the big sandscapes and the elevation change and, you know, the fescue and the texture that provided. You're going to see it once, and then you're going to say, okay, I need to do that again.
It's greater than the sum of its holes. There's not a hole at Tobacco Road that should really be pulled out as the hole. It's really about, 18 bangers that kind of all create this experience that you have when you walk off of all of them. And your first time playing, man, like, good luck trying to remember what just happened.
Mike was an artist, and his canvas was earth, and he could move it and shape it and make it do his bidding, and could make it a living work of art in the dirt. And that was his greatest skill.
This land's been in my family I've been coming out here for 50 years, 50 plus years, going to the cabin and hanging out with my dad. And I went hunting one time in my life. We went bird hunting, didn't see a bird, didn't get the shot off, but that was out here in 18 Fairway. About 1995, we were in the paving business, the construction business. We used to take a trip to Myrtle Beach every year, a team building thing, and we just came back and said, man, it'd be fun to build a golf course, because we like to build things anyway. And so I guess about 95, 96 just kind of marinated, and we started looking for property, and then we realized we probably had the property. Actually, we're doing due diligence on one of our other architects, and somebody said, look, my guy's great. He did a great job for us, but you should find the guy who did Caledonia, because that's all anyone's talking about it. So, okay, who did this? How do I get in touch with this guy? And so I called Caledonia, and they said, call the maintenance shop. And I called the maintenance shop, and at the time Mike was building True Blue, and so they said he'll be at the maintenance shop. Well, I left a message, didn't hear back, so eventually I tracked him down, and I just cold called him. And he was nice. He said, look, I live in Charleston. I did this, or Mount Pleasant. He said, we did the traveling thing. It's just too far from home. I'm not interested in traveling, but thanks. And I said, well, look, we've got this old sand pit. If you change your mind, give me a call. And so a week later, he was on the property. We were in our office, and I saw him get out of the truck, and I didn't know Mike, or I'd never seen him. But he gets out, and he's this, however tall he was, 6'4", 6'5", long hair, bushy mustache. And I said, oh, okay. Had his jorts on, his trademark jorts. We went down and saw some of what he'd done at Caledonia, and the way that he worked, the sketches that he would draw beforehand, and the way he worked is he had a routing. He had walked the land and he came up with a routing and made it work, and then he would stake the clearing limits of the hole, and then once he got the hole cleared, he wanted to see what was there, what features he could accentuate or create. And he and his dog Greta would sit, and he had a sketchbook, and I've got the sketchbook that he used to draw out each hole. And he would say, whether it was the 7th hole, he would draw out the tee shot, and then he'd go down to the landing area, the hinge point of the hole, and he would draw the perspective of the approach shot. And every shot here he drew, and then he went in the office there at Lee Paving, and he used the copy machine, and he'd make copies and give it to the shapers and say, okay, here's what I want. And they'd put it on their machines, and that's the way it was done. And if they didn't do it exactly like he wanted, he got what he wanted. I think Mike knew a lot earlier than we did that he was doing something memorable and, I guess, revolutionary or unique, or he said this is going to be pretty special, and we weren't sure at times. We would look at some of the things and we're like, are you really doing that? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, somebody played out here and said, it was obvious that you guys had never built a course before, because anyone who'd built a course would not have allowed Mike to do some of the things you did. And thank goodness for all of us. It was a leap of faith for us. I guess we caught Mike right as his star was really rising, but Mike took a bigger chance on us than we did on Mike, because again, we had no track record. He had a career, and we didn't have any track record, and so we're just thankful that it all worked out, because it probably shouldn't have. It probably was not a good idea in hindsight. There was some criticism, but there's so many golf courses that no one cares about, and I think the criticism element's all it was overblown initially. It was just so different than what anyone had seen. But now, once Mike built it, and then other destinations developed, and the influence and the boldness and the blind shots and some of the things that Mike did here, now you go to another resort, and then, you've played other places, and you come here, this is what a golf course is supposed to look like. But in 1998, no, this was not what necessarily the amount of sand, the blind shots, some of these things that are expected now were not expected at the time. And, Mike moved the art at here and other places, but Mike elevated the expectations and the architecture, and some of there was some resentment within the industry, and it was just nothing but pure jealousy. That's all it was. Everything he did exactly what he had to do for us to be successful. Exactly. If he had done less, who knows what would have happened. And it's so easy. You go play a golf course, and golf is booming right now. That's great. But from about 2000 to 2019, there's 20 or 25% of the golf courses in this country closed, and golf courses were struggling and rates were falling. And so many of these golf courses needed more. They needed more. They needed more dirt. They needed more exciting greens. They needed different challenges. They didn't need less. And so much of golf was about just dumbing down and reducing the maintenance, and, speeding people up and reducing the intrigue and the challenge of it. And Mike did exactly what he needed to do. I don't even know what you call the mound on 15 that splits the fairway on 15. I don't know what you call that feature, but it was there. Apparently that little strip of earth was not sandy. For whatever reason, it was clay. That area was delineated as not being dug. And so for whatever reason, it was never dug and it was sitting there. And so Mike said, okay, well, let's just shape the fairway around it and leave that feature there. What this site had, and it goes back to being authentic. What is this when Mike walked this site and he was like, look, let's use what we have. And we had sand, and he made these massive waste areas, and we've always played them as a waste area. If you take a place like 9, the waste area to the right of 9 green, you know, you've got 200 people play it on a daily basis. You hit your ball in somebody's footprint, it's just not realistic. I don't want to use the word fair, but it's just not realistic for somebody to have to play out of that. We can't maintain it. It's not realistic for to expect the customer to rake all this. So we're like, look, you just, again, have fun. It's not a official competition. We're not playing it down. We're here for fun, and, you know, smooth it out, help yourself, and keep moving. Let's have some fun. The blindness is the hazard here, and a lot of times that the further away you are, it's less blind, but the preferred lines are less blind. But a lot of times out here, the closer you are to the hole, the blinder it will be. And so that was the way that was Mike's way of creating some mystery and challenge and uncertainty, you know, for the golfer, the excitement for the golfer. And then 16, again, I said it's a 200-yard shot and a 100-yard shot. You know, if the pin's in the back, long and left is the miss, is the play there. It'll, you know, collect. The pin's up front, get your yardage right. And if it rolls down, if I miss it and it rolls back to me, I'm as likely to putt that third or fourth shot as to hit a little 60-yard shot. Generally speaking, in golf, the 3 finishing holes are going to be fastball, fastball, fastball. Okay. The 16th hole at Tobacco Road is a knuckleball. All right. It's like it's a 200-yard shot followed by a 100-yard shot, and a 14 handicap like myself should have that shot, and it's right there, and it's so hard to do. And it's just like a knuckleball, that when the knuckleball's working, it just floats in the air, and you think you're going to, you know, hit it 500 feet, and you just whiff, you know. And sometimes the knuckleball's easy, and I've seen, you know, eagles and birdies, but I've also seen people roll the ball off the green. I've seen some big numbers out there. I've taken some big numbers out there. And Mike's philosophy about that was, if you can't hit a wedge, what do you want me to do? It's one thing if you can't make a 300-yard carry, but if you can't hit a 100-yard shot, you know, 16 will reject the shot to the center of the green. And it's a little bit of a different, but it's such a short hole, it's a little different challenge that Mike put. But off the tee, I had another architect who played the course and said, well, why didn't they shape that down so you could see that landing area? And what you're seeing, or what you don't realize, that was a dam of a very small pond. It was an erosion control pond. And before we started construction, we had a big rainstorm and it blew out the left side. And so that was the remnants of a dam. And when Mike got here, he just left it. He didn't build up anything. He just, okay, well, I'm just going to leave that. And another architect said, well, I'd have cut that down. And he'd have cut it down, and we'd have cut it down, and nobody would care. You know, nobody would care about the hole. Nobody would care about the course. If you just remove the mystery, then what's left? You know, 5th hole, he left a lot of spoils at the 5th hole around the green. That was all natural. The sixth hole, there used to be, and I've got a picture here, there used to be an asphalt plant there, and like there's a bulkhead and some concrete footings and things you see, and that was a result of an asphalt plant that was there at one time by a competitor of ours who left that behind. And when we purchased the property, Mike's like, no, just leave it, and there's a lot of places like that, that you've got old features that people leave, and that was there. 13, the bathtub green at 13. When we first, I say we, my parents, they started mining back in the 50s or 60s. The very first acre that was mined was where 13 green is. And at the time that they started mining, there was a house. If you're approaching, as you're playing the hole in the left, it's now overgrown with woods. There was a house up there in the woods, and there was a well. And when they dug the mine, or when they were digging the sand, they dug around to not disturb the well, because they used the well at the cabin until we built the course in the 90s. That well was still running, in 1990, whenever we had to cut the line, 1997 or whatever. So they dug around that, and that about half of the bathtub was already there when Mike got there. The left side of that was all there. And he's like, I want to put a green back there. And we said, are you sure about that, Mike? And he said, yeah. We said, okay. But that's something he left, and it was there, left over from previous activity. It was not something you would.
If Mike was out here walking around and he, could see this reception that it's gotten, what do you think he would say?
I think he would. He might say, I told you so. He should say, I told you so. But again, I think Mike was a really humble, he's very, very talented, and he, knew he knew what he was doing, and he knew that he knew what he was doing. But he was also, again, I think he would be gratified. We've always tried to be mindful of the legacy that Mike had, because so many architects have said, well, if you ever want to change this, give me a call. And people want to put their own spin on it, and I probably do too. Would love for Mike to come back now. Mike was so busy, and then he got sick and passed away, and he never really came back. We let Mike do what he wanted to do, and we had a little input at times, but very little. And again, I just think it resonates because it's authentic. The goal was to, again, be a successful family business. That's what it was. The idea of it being someone's favorite golf course in the world, again, is unfathomable to me. And I would say it's just authentic. We didn't get into it to hold tournaments or to the competitive part was never our goal. Our goal was to be successful and for people to have fun. I don't care if someone shoots a 45 out here, if that's even, I don't care what you shoot, or 145. I just want you to enjoy yourself. And you're going to see some fun shots, and you're going to find yourself in some situations you probably don't know what to do or haven't seen before. But I just want to hit one shot. I just want to hit one memorable shot. That's all I want out of my golf game. That's all I want anyone to have. There are so many golf courses that everyone likes, but nobody loves. And you've got to find the love. You've got to find the true believers. That's the passionate, the true believers, the true fans, the lovers, not the likers. The haters are fine, but the likers will bleed you to death. But again, it's provided for the family, and really it goes back to the land and the sand. We're all here because of sand. All right, it goes back to sand. That when my parents were in the construction business, they needed sand, and ultimately sand has provided for my family for, you know, multiple generations. All right. So it's all about sand. It all goes back to sand.